Hi, I'm John with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we're going to be showing you how to repair your appliance. Remember that anytime you work on an appliance, make sure that it is unplugged or the circuit breaker is turned off so there's no chance of electrocution. We're going to show you how to install a new transmission and brake assembly for your GE washer. It's an easy job that only requires a 1/4-inch nut driver, a 5/16" nut driver, a Torx T-15 screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, a putty knife, a ratchet, 3/8", 1/2", and 3/4" sockets, a pair of side cutters, and a spanner wrench. When you open the package, you'll get one new transmission and brake assembly. The reason why you'd be replacing the transmission and brake assembly is if the machine won't agitate, if the drum won't spin, if water leaks, or if there's an odd noise during operation. To access the part, we're going to need to remove this entire top panel along with this control panel. You're going to need to use a Torx T-15 screwdriver to loosen and remove the 4 screws that hold this control panel in place. With the screws removed, tilt forward and then lift up slightly on the control panel, which will release these mounting tabs. Remove the hose that goes to the water level switch. And then just set down the control panel for now. Use a putty knife to press in and release the 2 tabs that hold the front panel in place. Tilt down the panel, then lift up and remove the entire front panel assembly. You'll need to use a 1/4-inch nut driver to loosen and remove the 2 screws that hold the top panel in place. Take the control panel and roll it backwards, and then locate and disconnect the wiring harness that goes to the lid switch. Afterwards, you can remove the entire top panel assembly. You'll need to use a 1/4-inch nut driver to loosen and remove the 5 screws that hold the metal panel in place. Slide forward the top panel assembly to release it, and then you can just rotate it around to the side. Use a 5/16" nut driver to loosen and remove the 4 screws that hold these tub restraints in place. We'll now need to remove this tub cover that's held in place by a series of plastic clips. Pull up to release each of the clips. Then, remove the tub cover. You'll need to remove the agitator assembly. To do so, grab it in the middle and pull straight up, and it should unclip. Use a ratchet with a 7/16" socket to loosen and remove the bolt that holds the washer agitator coupler in place. Then, remove the washer agitator coupler. You'll need to use a spanner wrench to loosen and remove the hub nut. Install the wrench on the nut. Then, using a hammer, tap on the wrench to loosen the nut in a clockwise direction. Then, remove the hub nut. With the hub nut removed, you can now lift up and remove the drum assembly. You'll now need to remove the tub bearing split ring. To do so, use a screwdriver to slightly pry it open, then remove it from the center hub. Then, pull up and remove the hub washer. You'll need to remove the upper side of the drain hose that connects to the tub assembly. Use a 5/16" nut driver to loosen the upper hose clamp. Then, remove the upper end of the hose. Next, remove the water level hose that connects to the side of the tub assembly. Disconnect the two wiring harnesses that go to the motor assembly. Note the location of the two wiring harnesses, then remove the harness assemblies. Use a 1/4-inch nut driver to loosen and remove the screw that holds the ground wire to the motor chassis. We'll need to remove the 4 suspension rods that hold the tub assembly in place. Lift up slightly on the tub assembly, pull down on the suspension rod, and you can pull out the whole assembly. Remove the 2 rear suspension rod assemblies. You'll now be ready to remove the tub assembly. To do so, you'll need to tip it forward and pull it out of the front of the cabinet. You'll now need to turn the drum assembly upside down to access the bottom. Using a 3/4-inch socket and a ratchet, you'll loosen and remove the nut that holds this pulley in place. However, if you put this on here, you'll notice it just rotates the pulley when you go to loosen it. So one trick is to grab onto the belt, squeeze it tightly, then you should be able to remove the nut. Now, lift up on the pulley, which will remove it from the drive shaft. And as you pick it up, you can remove the pulley and the belt. Use a 3/8-inch socket and ratchet to loosen and remove the 4 bolts that hold the transmission assembly to the mount. Use a 1/2-inch socket and ratchet to loosen and remove the 4 bolts that hold the mount to the tub. You'll need to remove this plastic tie strap that holds this tube to the side of the chassis. Use a pair of side cutters to cut through it, and then you're ready to go. Now, you can lift up to remove the chassis. You can now remove the transmission and brake assembly. To do so, pull up and it'll remove it from the tub assembly. With the transmission and brake assembly removed, now turn over the tub assembly so you can access the old washer tub seal. Use a flat blade screwdriver to pry up and remove the old seal. Then use a paper towel to remove any dirt or grime buildup that may have accumulated. Here's the old transmission and brake assembly. If you already have the new part, great. If not, you can get it from appliancepartspros.com. The transmission and brake assembly comes with a new washer tub gasket. Align it in the tub, then simply press it into position. With the new washer tub seal in place, turn over the washer tub, then install the new transmission and brake assembly. Simply slide it into place and then push down carefully. Remove the tape that holds the new gasket in place. Then reinstall the mount assembly. Rotate this portion of the transmission and brake assembly so that the holes align with the chassis. Once the top bolts are in place, thread and tighten the 4 bolts that hold the chassis to the tub. Reposition the flood tube. Then add a tie strap to hold it into place. Then reinstall the pulley and belt assembly. Place it on the large pulley and the small pulley, and then align the tabs here so it goes onto the drive. Afterwards, thread on the nut. Then squeeze in on the belt to hold tension on the pulley while you use a ratchet to tighten the nut. Afterwards, turn over the tub assembly. With the new transmission and brake assembly in place, we can now reinstall the main tub assembly. Tip it forward and then move it back into the cabinet. Then install the two front suspension rods. Lift up on the assembly, pull down on the rod, and then put it in place. Do the same for the other front suspension rod. Pull it down, move it into place, and then put it in position. Reconnect the ground wire that goes to the motor chassis. Reconnect the two wiring harnesses. In our case, this harness is longer and goes on the left, and this harness is shorter and goes on the right. Reconnect the water level hose that attaches to the side of the tub assembly. Install the upper end of the drain hose onto the tub. Then tighten the hose clamp. Install the hub washer. Reinstall the tub bearing split ring. Press it down until it clicks into place. Reinstall the drum assembly, making sure that it is centered on the drive shaft. Thread on the hub nut, then tighten it in a counterclockwise direction. Next, use the spanner wrench to tighten the hub nut. Reinstall the washer agitator coupler. Then thread in and tighten the bolt that retains the coupler. Reinstall the agitator. Simply align it, push it straight down, and it should clip into place. Position the tub cover on top of the drum. Then press it down so the mounting clips engage. Reconnect the tub restraints. Then use a 5/16" nut driver to thread in and tighten the retaining screws. Reposition the top control panel assembly, locking the tabs into place on both sides. Then we're going to need to thread in and tighten the 5 retaining screws that hold it in place. Position the top panel. Then reconnect the wiring harness that goes to the lid switch. Thread in and tighten the 2 screws that hold the top panel in position. Position the front panel assembly. Then position the top of the panel and then press it into place. On the back side of the control panel, reconnect the hose that goes to the water level switch. We'll now need to position the control panel so that each of these tabs goes into the openings. Position it and then roll it backwards into place. And then thread and tighten the 4 retaining screws that hold the control panel in place. Reconnect the power cord, and then your appliance should be ready for use. Thanks for joining us for another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. And be sure to check out our other repair videos on our website, on our Facebook page, and on our YouTube channel.